Welcome back to The Growth Hack. I'm your host, Marcus, and today's episode is a little different. So usually we talk about franchise marketing, but today I'm pulling back the curtain on something new, our latest business venture at Slater Digital that we're calling Misterpup, which is a pet waste removal service for pet owners. We'll be diving into how this business came to life, from the initial idea to building the brand, designing the website, and structuring the business model. I've got Mackenzie, our creative director at AdCloud, with me today, so let's get into it.
I'm excited about this one. Marcus, I know you're normally kind of helping franchises scale, kind of other people's businesses, but this one you're kind of in the trenches yourself, launching a new business. Let's start from the beginning. First things first, how did Misterpup come to life? What inspired you to start a pet waste removal business?
I try to stay connected into every industry. And I think through our franchising connections, naturally, we do a lot in the pet space. And so I've just been watching the trend there, and it's grown so much since COVID, right? Everyone during COVID said, hey, I need a pet. I need someone here in my house, my apartment with me. And we saw like pet adoption skyrocket, right? But then people realized these pets have to have baths, they got to be groomed, all the things. And so that's when we started to see like mobile pet businesses, they're on 7-8 month wait lists. And people started to really dive into the pet community and the pet service area to say, hey, what businesses can we start? We have a mini golden doodle, and the pet waste side of it is what I hate the most. We host a lot of parties at our house, and every time it's the first thing that comes, you need to go do the yard. You got to pick up the yard. People are coming over, and I absolutely hate it. And so I wish I would have come up with this idea 10 years ago. But, it's more so, I always say, finding the issue that you have. If you have an issue with something, chances are there's probably thousands or millions of people who have the same issue. So just as we started to do market research and look at those things and have conversation with other owners in the pet industry that are either in the same industry or they're in the grooming industry, I really was like, okay, I think I want to do something in pets. I want to launch something. It's just something that I like to do. I like to build brands, launch them, and see where they go. So Misterpup was kind of born over a matter of 12 hours. And we started to build out what it would look like, how it would work, how it would function. And we're excited to see it launch and grow this year.
So I've obviously experienced you a few times now with you launching these end businesses. Like you've literally have the idea on a Friday afternoon and by Monday it's launched. But with Misterpup, once you had the idea, what was your first step? Did you start with branding? Did you start with researching competitors, something else?
Yeah. So first step was researching competitors. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Just understand what other people are doing, how they're doing it, how you might be able to do it a little bit better. What's their pitch, their hook? I think far too often people get in and they're like, oh, I've got to create something brand new from scratch. I've got to come in and like, it's got to be completely my own. And that's not true. If you look at big retailer, we were just talking earlier about Target, right? Target versus Walmart. At their core, there's not a major difference from a sense of like you go in, they're shelving, you get these things. It's retail. Branding is the vast difference between who goes to Target and who goes to Walmart. It's kind of that same thing. We looked at the competition, and luckily in this space, there's not many. I think in this space, nationally, there's maybe 5. A competitor. There's some mom and pops and things in that nature, but they're kind of on the outskirts and spread out. And so it's not heavily saturated. But the great news is that in the pet industry, there's so many people that need to be serviced that no one company can service them all. There's just too many. It really just started on like, okay, market research, who's in the market, what are they doing, what's the revenue potential, and then just exploring software. How do we make this work? How do we make it efficient? How do we go through those types of things and validating demand? Is this a service that people actually want? There's a lot of, I think, information out there just around how quickly some of these brands have grown. Many have moved into franchising. And so when you start to naturally see that, you start to kind of say, okay, there's a market for that. There's a market to service locally or nationally. As Misterpup grows, we may say, hey, we want to franchise and take it nationally. It's also a business that can go international because Pets are everywhere. So it's not just US oriented in that sense. And that's kind of what I look for when we're building something on how quickly can it scale. I don't want to spend 1 to 2 years getting it to a certain point. I want to say, okay, in 6 months, how can we have a pretty strong baseline of a business?
Okay, so it sounds like kind of market research with your baseline of where to start and then how you could scale it. Obviously, I know you have a very strong marketing, branding background, so I'm assuming brand was probably a big portion of that. And obviously, I've gotten kind of a background view of it. I know the website is awesome and the kind of the brand identity is so cute. Can you talk about how you went about creating this brand voice and brand identity for Misterpup?
Yeah, so it's funny enough. We went through some different names for sure, some funny ones. I think when you get into pets, right, there's a lot of ways to make it fun, but we wanted to make it relatable, but also fun. Really, where Misterpup came in is there's a company in our town called Mr. Car Wash. And I started thinking about that and I was like, Misterpup, that sounds kind of cool. This is cool. I asked Kayla about it. And she's like, that's kind of cool. So then it ended up being Misterpup. So, I wish I could say that it was like this divine, come to of like, hey, this is what it's going to be. When we looked across the industry, everyone named it very literal, right? Everyone's like Scoop or, Scoop 911. Like they were so literal, which is fine, but it means you can never expand outside of that industry. Today it's pet waste removal. In 12 months, we potentially plan to be in the hyperwash space, washes in between grooming services and things in that nature. It allows us to expand out there. If we wanted to have an e-com play, that's one sector that's growing right now. I was talking with actually the founder and CEO of a company called Pet Butler a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying that a friend of theirs started to make Crocs for dogs. And at first I was like, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And they have been sold out for an entire year.
Oh my gosh.
And what we're finding is that people want the same services that you and I can get. People want that for their pets, whether that's service, product. I mean, ridiculous or not, people are paying for it. I remember like 5 or 6 years ago, there was a guy who launched a sock company solely for cat owners. All the socks are nice around your cats. You can have your cat's face printed on the socks. They are now, I believe, worth like 280 million as a company in e-com, but it's pet people are kind of crazy. And so, we named it Misterpup just to keep it broad because we may want to move into those and we didn't want to be so sectioned off to say, this is all we're ever going to do. Sometimes that's a good thing to focus on that. But I think in the pet space, it evolves and grows so much that we just wanted to make sure that we had the ability to do that.
So I think that's awesome because I would think, for a lot of beginner entrepreneurs, maybe they don't think about that. Like you have to really kind of think long term. Even when you are building these weekend businesses, you're really thinking way ahead of today. Like you have to think long term
For sure.
For those types of businesses. Okay, so after you kind of got the brand identity, you've done your market research, let's talk about the website. Obviously, digital marketing, but building service-based website is a whole different challenge. What is your process with that? Did you build the website yourself or?
Yeah, that varies. Sometimes because I have a background in that, I'll code and build myself. Sometimes we'll shop it out. If it's something like this, where it's a quick 48-hour stand up, we're going to launch quickly, I'll build it myself because I want that control over it. And then we can make tweaks later. I'm a full believer in the 80-20 method, right? Get it 80% there to launch and then focus on the 20% perfection later. I think where most people get stuck is they want it perfect. And then next thing you know, they're like, I've been working on this for a year and I've never tried to attract one customer. And so we developed it in-house. And for those that go and check it out, it's very fun. It's vibrant. It's colorful. It's not a beautiful thing to talk about. It took me probably a solid 12 hours of talking about it to become more comfortable with talking about pet waste removal. We wanted the site to reflect like just fun, vibrant. This doesn't all have to be dreary and out in the backyard, scooping up, dog feces. Anyway, it's very fun. It's branded very well. But again, also thinking about a year from now, 5, 10 years from now, we didn't want to build just solely focused in on, hey, we're going to do only this and have it that, and then rebrand in a year. Well, the branding that we did, we can keep next year and just roll out new products and services. It's always just when you go into it, even if you're like, I don't know if this is going to make $1, think about what if it does, right? And what does that look like in a year? What does that look like in 3 years? And a lot of times thinking that far ahead can kind of help guide you into how you formulate your current messaging, your pitch, your product, your service today, and where you want it to be 10 years from now. And that's essentially what we've done here.
So let's talk about the actual business model. Obviously, pet waste removal is a unique service. How did you structure the pricing and the service model?
Yeah, so membership models are all the rave right now. If you're getting into business and you're like, hey, I want to launch such and such, figure out a way to make it recurring. Figure out a way to do a membership, whatever that is. It's a digital product, it's a home service you're performing, it's personal training. I went in knowing that we want a membership model because it's much better. If we ever do like acquisition, investors look at that and they like membership models much better than they do one-offs for scalability. And on the business baseline side, it's much better to be able to know every month we have X amount recurring in. You're going to account for churn, but you have this baseline and it helps you kind of make better business decisions on staffing and vehicle usage and all of those types of things. We went with a membership subscription model. It's priced, per cleaning. So if you want once a week, if you have one dog once a week, you have a certain price. If you have two dogs and you want it twice a week, 3 times a week, etc., the price changes per cleaning from that point. Most people on average have 2 dogs and they want twice a week. And that's kind of what we've seen just in the market research. And so you kind of play around those things. And then naturally we look at our competitors and where they're priced and what they're doing and what services they're offering and how we can, one, as a baseline offer the same, but then how can you do it maybe a little bit differently? Again, I think it's an area where you don't have to be extremely different because there's just so many. When we did the market research, it showed there was, I think it was 86.7% of households have at least one dog. How many households are there? Single family home households in our county, Sumner County, and you can kind of start to do that math. There's no way we would ever be able to service all those. So there's plenty of market to go around. So you don't have to underprice, too much. And then you look at customer retention and churn. How do you navigate that? Those things are, to me, I think more so basic, right? Good customer support, a lot of communication, setting the expectation from the beginning. Coming from the bounce house company that we launched, 2 years ago and sold off, that was one of those things where everything was so hard scheduled because it was based around people's events. You can only route a certain way because, Sarah's party's at 8 a.m. So you had to be pretty strict. With this, you don't actually get to pick. The consumer doesn't pick the day that they want you to come. It's think about your pest control company, right? You don't get to say, hey, I want you here on Friday. They text you and say, hey, we're 30 minutes out. We're going to come because you don't have to be home. We go through the gate, we do the cleanup, we close the gate, take a photo and leave. So you don't have to be home. So we're able to really route it. We have software that auto routes those things. So it makes just that interaction much easier. It also makes it easier on the customer because we're not asking for their time. I think there's a convenience factor to knowing you don't have to worry about those things.
Okay, so after you've gone through all the steps, you've got the website, I know we have social kind of ready. Then what? What is your process with, are you hiring? Are you actually running the business yourself? From an entrepreneur standpoint, you've got the brand ready. Now what?
I think for me personally, I am not running it because we have a million other things happening and going on. We naturally hire out and have staff that will do this and run it and grow. I think for a lot of new entrepreneurs, you're probably going to be self-servicing. Like you are at the helm of figuring that out. And I would say 9 times out of 10, that's the best case scenario. You should know your business better than anyone. You should know the ins and outs, the ups and downs, the wrongs and rights. You can't hire someone and expect them to come in and say, hey, go do a good job, be a great advocate, be our cheerleader. No one's going to care about your business more than you do. I think for us, we've done it so much that we kind of have a knack in just who and how and why and how to keep tabs on that. But I think if you're new to this space, you're going to be pretty involved there. And so for us, we're obviously going to hire people that service. Again, our software is really good at tracking the interaction and how those things are going to make sure there is a certain level of experience that we expect, that the customer expects. But I think just if you're getting into it, definitely navigating like doing it yourself and then building a standard operating procedure around the hows, the whats, the whys, the issues that may come up. There's things that we have to take into effect. You might have a rowdy dog that's just mean. So we have policies in there, like if your dog seems on edge that day and they happen to be in the backyard, we're probably not going to go in to save everyone some headache. We'll come back and try to service at another time. But those are just things, again, that you have to kind of learn along the way or do your market research to understand. But again, from there, it's just kind of moving into launch phase. All the things that we look at in regards to pre-build, like those things can be fun, but they're not the most fun. To me, it's day one of launch. Like, hey, we're going to launch. We're going to start running ads. We're going to do all these things. We've built the marketing funnel. And now we get to really see how people are interacting, what they're saying about the brand or the service and all those things. And I've shared this concept with many people today, not like in my circle, outside of my circle, just to kind of get feedback. And it's funny because everyone's like, I had no idea this service existed, but it is genius. Now we see companies that are successful in it, but there's such a small margin of people who actually have realized that this is actually an option and I don't have to be out there doing this myself. So we're pretty excited to get that launched and go through that process and test and learn and figure it out.
Yeah, it's really exciting. I'm personally excited to see kind of what this one does. It's just a fun brand. Like I said, from working on social, you did such a great job creating that brand identity. It's so much fun. Here's the big question is, how are you planning to grow from day one, as far as like, I know you said you'll probably be running ads, pretty immediately, but then is there a bigger plan for Misterpup, or kind of where are you going to go from here?
I think overall, I mean, obviously social and Google are at the forefront of traditional growth in the beginning and how you do those things. We want to make sure that we have implemented both referral programs and partnerships. In the pet space, there's so much to go around because everything is co-shared. You heard me talk earlier about a brand called Pet Butler, and they're kind of in that same world where they've built this ecosystem. It's kind of interesting. They actually own a landscaping company before owning Pet Butler. And because of the landscaping company and doing all of those things, they knew every house that had a pet. Like they knew who had a pet, who didn't have a pet.
Yeah.
So then they launched Pet Butler and were able to co-market.
Oh, wow.
Because they knew, hey, we already do your landscaping. You have a dog. Wouldn't you like these services, sitting, walking, etc.?
Probably easy to combine those
Yeah,
too.
and then vice versa. As Pet Butler gets into new markets and new houses that don't have lawn services and landscaping, they market back and forth.
That's
those,
brilliant.
I think for Misterpup, that's what we look at. But then building partnerships with brands like Petco and PetSmart, just finding ways to kind of co-sync with the community, because the same people that we're servicing may be looking for a mobile groomer or maybe looking for all of those things. And we do that a lot in like the beauty and fitness space. You'll see beauty brands partner with Orange Theory and say, hey, for all your Orange Theory members, they can come and get half off our service, and vice versa. For our beauty members, they can come and get a free Orange Theory session. It's just finding those likenesses, and that's really at scale. Now, there is no definite in anything. We are really good at this, but the market may prove us wrong. We may come back and say, oh, this wasn't it. But if it is what we think it is, I think then we'll explore multi-location, multi-partnerships, licensing and franchising in that sense, or an acquisition of some sort. So we like to build, we like to run, we like to sell too. I think it just is a matter of seeing where it goes, how it builds up, and where the market takes us. The thing that we know is people will always continue to purchase pets and have pets and to navigate those things. There's just this natural recurrence there. I think just through partnerships and things, we'll begin to explore what that looks like. And hopefully a year from now, we'll be adding some new services and products and exploring how that plays into the ecosystem there.
Well, it's super exciting. This has been awesome, Marcus. Where can people kind of follow along Misterpup's journey?
So obviously all the main places, the website, misterpup.com. And then you can go to Instagram, Misterpup Nashville, and check it out. If you have questions about launching a business, getting started, or getting over your fears of getting started, send us a message, reach out. We're always here to kind of share our knowledge, what we've been through, what we've seen. We've seen just about every up and down you can imagine. And so we'd love to help just talk through that with you. But I think that's a wrap on today's episode. And if you enjoyed this breakdown of how Misterpup came to life, make sure you subscribe, leave a review, and follow us for more insights into business growth, marketing, and entrepreneurship. Thanks for tuning into the Growth Hack Franchise Marketing Unleashed. See you next time.